Good morning. This is Dick Black. I am here with you on February the 5th, 2024, and we've got a very exciting show for you. Um, we have two independent candidates who are running for office in New York City, and one, Diane Sare, she's a veteran of New York politics and someone who carried out the amazing feat of getting on the ballot as an independent in the race against Chuck Schumer. And I recall very clearly what she did, where um, she was racking up a lot of votes, and apparently it was a little bit of an embarrassment for the establishment. And I saw the screenshots, and they ran up a total for her, and then suddenly they stopped, and then they changed the numbers, and all of a sudden they radically revised her vote tally downward. Now, this wasn't that they were so much playing with the votes themselves, although I can't swear to that either, but they were playing with the numbers so that when she ran again, if she did, then it wouldn't look like she had done as well as she did in the first race. So corrupt. You know, the New York politics is fatally corrupt and unresponsive to the needs of the people of New York City and of the state and indeed of the entire country, because it's very important to the country. So this is Diane, and then we have Jose Vega, who is with us, an enormously capable young man, a great leader of people. I mean, he is a gifted leader. He understands the pulse of the nation, the pulse of the street, and he's a common sense guy who brings, I think, a tremendous amount of hope to a district in New York City. Now, Diane Sare is running for United States Senate, and then Jose Vega is running for a congressional seat in New York City. And so we will hear from both of them. Welcome, Diane. Welcome, Jose. It's good to have you with us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, well, Diane, how about if you lead off, since you're the veteran in this, and just tell us a little bit about your campaign and where you're hoping to take things.
Sure. And yes, what you said about the last election was completely correct. I had to get 45,000 ballot signatures to get on the ballot as an independent. In the state of New York, you cannot run as just independent or unaffiliated. You have to create an entity, or what they call an independent body. I chose to associate myself with LaRouche. That's who I worked with. And also, over the years, over 80,000 people or more in New York State had signed up for LaRouche's publication. So I knew it was a name that was known. And I think Roger Stone actually may be correct when he said there's no such thing as bad press, that controversy stirs interest. And my big issue in running against Schumer was the threat of nuclear war, which I thought the situation with our proxy war with Russia using Ukraine was putting us toward. Now I see we have just a spectacular mess going on in Southwest Asia, which is completely unnecessary if the United States had a just foreign policy and we're not interested in provoking conflict everywhere, which is what we seem to be doing. We have soldiers, as you know very well, in bases in Syria and Iraq, where they are stealing the oil, stealing the wheat. What's the point of having a military base somewhere if your sole purpose is defending yourself from harm? That is So in 2022, when I did the petitioning campaign, which Jose was a part of, uh, what we found was very interesting. When you would ask people to sign, they would say, well, what does she stand for? What do you stand for? And I would say that nuclear war is not a good way to balance the budget. And then they would say, well, what party are you with? And I would say independent. They'd say, oh, thank God, I just left the X party. I just left this party. I'm so sick of the parties. People really do know that things are locked in. And you see the demoralization in 2023 when I went to vote here in Rockland County for the local elections. Out of 16 various small offices, there was only one seat which was contested. Only one. So people aren't even bothering to enter the race because they just feel, what's the point? It's locked up. There's fraud. There's insider family deals. Jose will tell you later. We met, or I'll tell you now, and I hope he can hear. We had a meeting yesterday with a former state senator who described how he had personally witnessed them changing the vote in the machines when he was running for office.
Yes.
And now they can do it online or whatever. But I think, the main issue is that we don't have qualified leadership right now. We need statesmen and women. We need an Abraham
Well,
Lincoln.
this is true. And Jose, I'd like to bring you in. Yes. I'd like to bring Jose in and just have him introduce. We'll get into some of the issues that affect New York State and New York City. But I just like to bring Jose in and get him to give an introduction of himself. I know him very well, have enormous respect for him. Jose, can you give us a little bit of rundown on what you're doing?
Sure. Well, everything I'm doing is completely in tandem with what Diane is doing with her run for Senate. I mean, we're running in the same state. She's a statewide candidate. I'm a district-wide candidate. One of the reasons I decided to run here in the Bronx is because the Bronx is one of these places that has been left behind. I mean, what do people think when they think of the Bronx? Not very good things, right? Now, I'm not promising people to win. I'm not promising people to vote, but I am promising that I will do my best to redefine what it means to be from the Bronx. If we can get the Bronx to be a center where people are actually calling for, infrastructure improvements in the country, for high-speed rail, for it to be a science center or an astronomy center, then we will have succeeded in my campaign. That is how I see it, and that's what I see. I mean, you have, as you know, Senator, you've talked about this before, there's rampant drug addiction, drug issues here in the Bronx and in New York City as a whole, and New York State as a whole, right? And, people, I again, as Diane was describing, we met with this former state senator who described the fact that they're changing the votes. I mean, it's completely outrageous. And not only that, but they make it damn near impossible for independents like myself and Diane, because we are running unaffiliated right now with any of the two parties. They make it damn near impossible for us to even get on the ballot. I mean, how is it possible to get 45,000 signatures in a 6-week window, right? And really, that means more because, as you know, Senator, you've petitioned. It means you need to get double the number of signatures because they challenge your signatures. And so we were the only ones who were actually able to get onto the ballot. So, that's yeah. So I think that's a little introduction of my campaign.
Well, I'm very excited. My wife was from the Bronx. She was from Jamaica, Queens, and she moved down to Miami. But I'm very focused on that, very interested in what happens because there are candidates like you. There are not many, but there are candidates like you who bring legitimate hope to people in low income areas. And they can run a campaign that's not just based on you know, tensions between one group and another, but sort of dynamic campaigns that that actually offer to accomplish something, offer to restore some order, to root out corruption, to have a focus on the people who live there. Now, it is, at least to me from a distance, it seems that all of the priority in New York State, New York City, is on accommodating these aliens who are being swept across the border by the Biden administration, dumped into New York City, and it seems that the Americans just count for nothing anymore. I read the story about the 95-year-old Korean War veteran living on a small pension. They kicked him out on the streets so that they could upgrade his apartment building to accommodate aliens who can't possibly be expected to live in squalid conditions like some American veteran. They've got to live in good places. They're putting them up in posh New York hotels at $500 a night, hotels that I couldn't afford. Neither of you could afford to stay in those hotels. But foreigners who come over here, who break the law to get here, who come with just a hostility and hatred towards Americans, they can come in and then they knock out people in your state and in your congressional district. So it's very interesting what is going on. What do you think ought to be done with the aliens who are being dumped into New York City?
Diane, you want to start?
Sure. I mean, look, the problem is the problem doesn't originate at the border. So in the short term, I do think we need some kind of emergency Army Corps of Engineers crash program to get manpower, housing facilities down there so that every single person coming in can be vetted. We don't know who's coming in. We have no idea. I saw Governor Abbott's letter to President Biden. He said there are 28 legal entrance points in Texas where people don't drown in the river. Can we not have people come through where you presumably would have a means to process them? But trying to stop it there is a little bit like, jamming somebody full of marbles and then trying to stop them from, going to the bathroom at the end of the process. You have to figure out how this originates. And there's a couple factors. One, I think very big are the cartels. We have the drug cartels who are now also doing human trafficking. There's clearly a huge market, I'm sorry to say, in the United States for child pornography, for sex slaves, for slave labor, which is being exploited. And somehow we have such a reticence to go after big money. We don't go after BlackRock. We don't go after Jamie Dimon. We don't go after drug money laundering. We have to do that. We also have to look at our foreign policy. If we were working to, one, build massive infrastructure projects in the US as we did it or allowed nations to do it in Mexico or other places, there'd be a lot of jobs there. People wouldn't want to leave. But if we're going to overthrow their government and put bone-crushing starvation level sanctions on the people, you think they're just going to sit there and die? No, they're going to move. So I think it's a very complicated process. And I think part of the dynamic and the way it's covered, you saw maybe we had a gang of migrants beat up a couple of police officers here in Manhattan. They were sent to prison, released again immediately. the only sane thing that Hochul has said so far that I can agree with is they should have been deported. But at any rate, why do we get this? Why do we get this kind of coverage? I actually think that there is a desire to create a civil war, to get Americans to start killing each other or to start killing these people who themselves are being used, right? What's so great about staying in a tent with 2,000 people and the hotels, they're being paid by FEMA top dollar to house people, which they would not be paid if regular people were staying in them. So the migrants themselves are a conduit for massive money laundering, of which they are not benefiting because they're only allowed to stay there for 30 days. Then they're out on the street camping out for 5 days and pooping on the sidewalk while they're trying to figure out. I mean, maybe it's possible people are that incompetent, but I think there's a willful intention to create chaos and to see if you can push Americans who are good-willed and good-natured over the edge to begin becoming violent, which would be a hideous thing. And therefore, we have to fight for the humanity in people. We can never look on another human being as less than human.
And just to add on to that, I think to bring another dimension to this, there needs to be a recognition of the role that the United States and Britain in particular has played in the destabilization of the countries of where the people are originating from. If you go down to the border, you don't just see people from Central and South America, you see people from African countries coming in. You see people from Asian countries coming in, right? They're flying into, Mexico or Honduras, and then they're working their way up into it. Why? Well, because for the last 40 years, the official foreign policy of Great Britain and the United States has been destabilize and depopulate. I mean, this goes back to Henry Kissinger's NSSM 200, National Security Memorandum 200, where he specifically stated that the world population is going to get out of control, so we need to figure it out. And then you had a U.S. State Department official, Thomas Ferguson, of the Population Affairs of the United States. He said this explicitly in an interview. He said, well, if countries don't want to play ball when it comes to, productive methods of depopulation, such as, birth control or, infertility or what do they call the operation? Yeah, sterilization, excuse me. Yeah. If they don't want to play ball with that, then they are going to get what you see in El Salvador. And this was when the Salvadorian Civil War was happening. And people may not know about the Salvadorian Civil War. And also, publicly, congratulations to President Bukele, who just became reelected yesterday. You got
amen to that.
Yeah.
One of the great leaders of the world today is the newly reelected president of El Salvador, who has reduced the murder rate in that country to effectively zero, from being like the highest murder rate on the planet. And he's just not playing governmental structure games. He's getting things done for the people. So
and
just a plug for El Salvador.
Well, they also can see the effects of that destabilization process of the Civil War, because the Salvadorian diaspora internationally, if you were looking at Bukele's social media yesterday, he was posting videos of people here in the United States in different states, like lines wrapped around the block in Elizabeth, New Jersey, of people wanting to vote for Bukele, right? That they're using their dual citizenship to vote for President Bukele, not just here in Spain, in Australia, in China, right? Salvadorians that have left the country around and have gone around the world are now going back to El Salvador because of what you just said, lowering the murder rate, but also rebuilding the country. There are highways now that connect every small village that they didn't have before. Every municipality has clean water, whereas before 2018, only 50% of municipalities actually had access to clean and potable water. So you know, we need to kind of like address why this is happening, and we need to actually, I don't want to say atone, but you know, those countries need to be given the opportunity to rebuild themselves again, so that, you know, you won't have such a big influx of immigration coming into the United States.
Well, you know, have we have moved a tremendous portion of our factories down to Mexico. And they're now, I think, the 12th largest manufacturer in the world, and yet we have this flood across the border, and this is not something that's just organically occurring. We know that there's a major pipeline of people being imported to the United States from Sudan. Now, the income in Sudan is maybe $250 a year, and the cost of a plane ticket from Sudan to Mexico is perhaps 10 years' wages or something. There's just no possibility that the people coming could pay it. So who is paying it? Either the drug cartels are paying it directly, or there are mega billionaire people, what I call the boys from Davos, these globalists, international globalists who have no allegiance to any country. Somebody is paying literally many, many billions of dollars to bring this flood of humanity here. And so, and you know, there's an interesting article that I was reading, and I believe it was from the Times, and said that New York City had a large influx of immigrants in the 1800s, and the philanthropists assisted in getting them settled. And I think the difference is that back then, the people coming, first of all, they were coming legally, and they dreamt of being Americans and of working hard to become part of a great, exciting nation and its culture. They didn't come here to say, well, we're going to change it, or we're moving here where all these oppressors are. And so today you have a totally different regime with people coming in, and now with Alvin Bragg in New York City, he's sort of turned it into a kind of a free fire zone for criminals, where, you know, they can beat up a couple of policemen trying to control and bring some order to the immigrant mobs. And right away they're taken down, thrown to the ground, and you have just a whole bunch of these aliens who are kicking them, trying to kill them, and then the next thing they identified and arrested a number of them. New York City police did a good job of getting the arrests made, and Alvin Bragg put them out on the streets. What the heck? You want to beat up? You want to commit aggravated assault against New York City police who are trying to help you? Well, that's okay. You can do it. You can kick them. You can kill them if you want. I'm going to release them because after all, they're oppressors, and you're oppressed. You're newly arrived oppressed people. You've never had anything to do with this country, but all of a sudden you're entitled to kick around police. I think part of it is if you have widespread crime, you cannot have a fruitful economy. Economics relies on the ability of people to conduct business in a sane fashion. People don't want to open stores. They don't want to open businesses if people are able to attack and perhaps kill them and walk away scot-free. So that's a tremendous problem. I don't know. I don't know what we do with Alvin Bragg.
Well, I don't think I should say what I think here, but on this problem, look, I am so suspicious of the way this is covered, and I know the media covered it when they took these migrants to prison and they were giving everyone the middle finger and acting very arrogant. And I can't help but wonder, are these guys like part of a CIA operation? Are they paid by the drug? Because clearly why is the press covering it in this way? To be absolutely as incendiary as possible, to get people divided and hateful. And frankly, given the influx, it's miraculous that we haven't had more such incidents. So when you see something like this, I get really suspicious about what they choose for their photo op, and can we get everyone as enraged as possible? Number two, I think part of the 1880s, and we did a program this past Friday on actually President Grant and the shift in the United States, because there was a great movement in the world to replicate what we had done through American system economics, and a whole bunch of people got assassinated all over the world by the British. I mean, we had not only Lincoln assassinated, but Presidents Garfield and McKinley. Then you had leaders like Carnot eliminated. You had Bismarck deposed. In other words, the U.S. had a mission. We had built the Transcontinental Railroad. We were building canals. We were gearing up our industry. We became not only the most productive nation on the planet, we produced more than the entire world combined. So when you're on a mission like that, you can absorb people who are here who say, I want my grandchildren to live better than I do. I'm going to work my rear end off. Because they're swept into a dynamic. What's the mission here? And I heard something, I don't know if it's true. They're saying that California is offering free gender affirmation surgery for the migrants. I find it really hard to believe that people are flooding into our country so they can have various parts of their anatomy removed. I don't think that's what they're looking for. I'd be really curious to know if they have takers on that. At any rate, so we're insane. What is the mission of our nation? What are we building? What new city are we building? What do children want to learn? Are we challenging them? Are we creating something where people feel a value in developing their talent, developing their mind? That creates a totally different environment. And then people who are criminally intended will stick out like, white on a purple field. You'll see, it'll be obvious but the entire society is criminalized. We have no mission, and therefore it just becomes this night in which cows are black, and all cows are black, and you somehow can't get a handle on it.
Well, we've lost our sense of vision. There was an article recently. I hate to keep quoting the Times, but I do read it among other things. But there's a lengthy article. I can't tell you who the author was offhand, but it was criticizing the writer of Rhapsody in Blue,
Gershwin.
George Gershwin, who was, I think, certainly one of the great songwriters of all human history, not just sort of the era. He captured the vibrancy of America, the hope, the dreams, and he did it. He was so creative, and he does Porgy and Bess. He does just all of these different things, and everything he does just seems to turn to gold. Died very young. Died at 39 of a brain tumor. But this article was very critical, and it criticized him for being, it said, too Caucasian. And I mean, this is a guy who wrote Porgy and Bess, which was kind of a little bit cutting edge for its time, and fortunately, I read the comments a great deal, and the comments were almost uniformly critical of the author taking that approach and for failing to recognize the genius of George Gershwin. So we've gone from that time where things weren't perfect. Things are never perfect. You and I are not perfect. Even Jose is not perfect, but we strive for good. We strive for something better. And now it's sort of like the elites of America don't really strive for anything better. They don't have a dream for the future, something that they can lift up America with. And I just see the two of you as people, because I have known you and I've worked with you to some extent. And I know that you're people who have a genuine dream of the future. And to me, I just find that exciting.
Senator,
Jose, what do you feel?
Well, I just want to say I'm not perfect because I don't like Gershwin. I'm sorry. And there are many reasons we can go into that, but we don't have to take it up now. I know we're getting close on time, Senator. I would just say, I think the purpose of our campaigns is to really reorient the American people again. We're coming up on 250 years of this country, of the foundation of this country, of the Declaration of Independence, and what can we really show for it? What can the American people really show for it? Honestly, not much right now, because you see our leadership, you see where our country is right now. It's a complete mess. It's a disaster. And I think our campaigns are trying to remind people the spirit of what it means to be an American. That's what we need to do right now. That's like the number one most important thing, because the world looked to America as like this beacon of hope against imperialism, against colonialism, against everything that was wrong in the world. America was the example of like, well, we need to strive to be that. And when I was in China, I spoke with these government officials who said, China has a 5,000 year long history, and the United States doesn't even have 250 years of history, yet it is one of the most important nations in the world. There is something special about America that it can attain that status within 250 years. And I agree. But do the American people agree?
Well, I'm sure that there are a number of very important issues upon which either one of you and I would disagree. But I just, as I watch what you're doing and I listen to your ideas, I find them exciting. And if I lived in New York, Diane, I would probably be voting and campaigning for you. And if your ideas didn't precisely, didn't overlap mine that much, just seeing you and watching you and knowing your mindset, your hopes for America would just lift me to the point where I would definitely be voting for you. And Jose, I've got to say, and I know, because my wife was from Jamaica, Queens, and so I have a little bit of an image of the situation there. And I tell you, if I lived in Jamaica, Queens, and I saw Jose Vega on the ballot, I would just tell everyone, Hosanna, here we have somebody who can bring some hope to this area where people were escaping from Jamaica, Queens back in the early 50s when my wife left, and of course, things have spiraled down greatly since then. But this is not a permanent condition that can't be changed, and that there cannot be hope. There can be hope. And I'll tell you, if I were there in Jamaica, Queens, and I saw Jose Vega, I'd just wake up every morning and I'd say, well, yeah, yesterday was bad, but Jose is going to be my congressman,
Oh
and,
boy.
and I'm excited about that. I'm dead serious. So, well, Diane, would you like to make a closing comment before we sign off?
Just, I'm thrilled that Jose is also running. I do think this question of the 250-year anniversary of our founding is a very important one. We didn't get to touch on it, but given the findings of the International Court of Justice, we've come to the sad state of affairs where our nation right now is complicit in genocide before the eyes of the world. We're better than that. I believe that. I believe the American people are better than that. And I do think that, and I'm hopeful that the combination of our efforts will do what you said, will lift people out of their smaller divisions and help them to see that there's something actually very good that we could be doing in the world, which will benefit future generations and will also ensure the work that the people who died for this nation is not in vain.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Diane Sayre, running for United States Senate in New York, and to Jose Vega, who is running for Congress in the Bronx. I wish you both well. It's people like you who are the hope for a better America and for a new dream, a new vision of what America can be, one that ties into the old vision and moves us forward in a dynamic fashion. So thank you very much. And to our listeners, we will be back with you Monday. This has been Focus on the News. Senator Dick Black, now retired, and we will see you then.